All right, I believe I am the top in the beginning of this fine shindig. So I just want to say welcome. I'm Adam Watson, and I am one of the team members here at OVEC on our Deeper Learning team. We're very excited to have everyone here at the end of a day that I'm sure had its challenges and things that took away bars from your strength meter there, as they say in video game land. But here you are, and I'm so glad and so thankful. We all are very thankful that you're here today. We want to start off with just a couple of housekeeping reminder level kind of things. So we're going to start with the fact of a little housekeeping. Just as the lady's voice said, the session is being recorded, and that will be archived and then eventually uploaded and shared later. Meanwhile, if you haven't already, just want to make sure you got the message to please change your Zoom name to reflect your organization or district in it, preferably at the front, but honestly, as long as we can tell when we look, that'll help us greatly in breakout rooms. And you can do that by going to the participants button, and then the little button at the end should be able to find how you can rename yourself. So clicking on, ladies, do we have the slides dropped in yet in the chat? The link to the slides?
We do not, but I can put it there.
Perfect, thank you. There's going to be a bit of sitting back for a minute or two, but eventually you're going to need the slide deck to do some clickety clicks. So just be ready for that as we drop that slide deck link in our chat. Our prior sessions, we said this one's being recorded. Well, the other two were as well. And they are now, as of this moment, officially up on our OVEC YouTube channel. So just for reference sake and convenience sake, we have those two embedded in the slide deck. Please help yourself to playing those and sharing those, and especially if there's any friends that you think would benefit from maybe seeing one of our prior sessions. That said, we can click to the next. We start off all of these virtual sessions with a reminder of our community commitments. So first, just, the stepping up and stepping back. Be mindful of taking up more space, but on the same note, please empower yourself. Please unmute. Please ask that question or share that comment. We want to hear from you and hear your lovely voices. We want to, assume be a charitable listener, and assuming all the people that are in this group have something to offer that you would learn from. And we're debating the ideas, not the people. On the right side, we honor your time. We definitely want to make sure that this, though it's scheduled to go till 6 p.m., I'll promise you this much: it's not going to go late. We're going to end on time. That's our commitment to you. The connection is making a space for connection, for opportunities for us to share a whole group and talk and network and learn from each other. And last but not least, please have grace with us, as technology can sometimes be glitchy or funny, and we certainly will offer that same to you. I think this is the baton pass. Rachel, please take it away.
All right, so flashing back to where we've been, I recognize most of our faces here, but just where have we been so far? So we started our first day, that whole person together, really trying to define what is deeper learning. We immersed ourselves in that experience from the learner's lens, where we learned about the girl McKenna, tried to figure out what was wrong with her. We did a card sort where we tried to determine what makes something a vibrant learning experience, and kind of came to our own definition of what deeper learning is, and then revealed what are some of the simple shifts that we experienced and learned about along the way that could get us to a more deeper learning experience. Day 2 was our first virtual session. In that session, we really zoomed in on tasks. What are some shifts we can make to the tasks we put in front of our students that will move us from a more traditional student experience to a more transformational one? And again, we ended that by looking at what are some of the simple shifts that went on in that McKenna task, and additional simple shifts we explored that could get us to a more transformational, deeper learning experience. And then our last time we got together, we really zoomed in on the durable skills we know that our kids will need. Many of us talk about these in terms of a profile of a graduate. And we looked again at a task like McKenna, that even though it's pretty transformational and or at least transitional in a lot of aspects, right? it still had some places it could push on. It could still make some more explicit connections to those success skills. And then finally, we, again, what were the simple shifts? We always try to empower you with the boom, boom, like what's the thing tomorrow I can take away to start transforming that student experience to be a more deeper learning experience. And today we're going to explore how can we create more student-owned experience? How can we create senses of student ownership of learning? And so to kick us off with a little welcome and inclusion, we're going to do a little synectics activity. And I want you to think about in your mind, when students are owning their learning, it's like what? Because what, right? So we've got some images here, some fireworks, a brewing storm, and a calm, peaceful sea. And either in the chat, if you would prefer that way, or you can turn your microphone on. I just want you to think about, in your mind's eye, when you think about what it looks like when students are owning their learning, which of these is it like, and like why? So either drop something in the chat or share with us out loud. I know some of you are driving, so whatever is safest or easiest for you, we'd love to hear it.
Okay, I have to unmute because I'm driving.
Thank you
I'm gonna
so much.
say, you're welcome. I'll be chatty Cathy for you. It's like when students own their own learning, it's like fireworks because you can see the excitement in their expressions and also in their thinking of all the sparks flying of ideas and engagement and authenticity.
Thank you so much. I love that. Kim also added, when students own their learning, it's like waves in the ocean, powerful and far reaching with the power to cause impact and change. I love that. I'm an ELA teacher by trade. I'm loving all the metaphors and imagery. This is awesome. Sharon said the last one for me, because it's like everything becomes clear. Oh, I love that. I didn't even think about the water and how that could be indicative of something. Awesome. So maybe some more answers will trickle in as we go. Here we go. Selena says fireworks. Occasionally it's like the awakening like the waves rolling in. Okay, so it could look like some different things. But what I'm seeing here and what all of you are describing is kind of like it's this magic moment of things coming together. And it's really beautiful to watch, right? But maybe difficult to create. And so today we're going to think about how do we make that shift to empower students to own their learning? How do we move from a really teacher-owned environment to a student-owned environment? Sounds really beautiful. Sounds like some of those fireworks you all just are describing, or the beach where the waves are rolling in. But like the tangibles, like how do we do that? That's what we're going to try to dig in today. A couple more things rolling in there, so check those out if you haven't. So to do this, we're going to, for the next little bit, immerse ourselves in a little simulation. So for the next 30, 40 minutes, you are going to be Miss Z, and you are an instructional coach at Sharky Schools. My son, he is 3, he's obsessed with sharks, so it just had to spill over into my work somehow. So you are Miss Z, and you are an instructional coach at Sharky Schools. And your principal comes to you, Mr. Lemon, comes to you, and like a lot of our principals do, they go off to some sort of professional learning and they feel so like excited or empowered. And he comes back and he says, Ms. Z, I was at this awesome PD this summer and I am so inspired. And guess what? Our focus school-wide this year is on student ownership of learning. And now, Ms. Z, it's going to be your job to help me coach these teachers from making that shift from a very teacher-owned classroom to a student-owned classroom where they're really owning their learning. And like any good instructional coach, Ms. Z is like, of course, Mr. Lemon, I've got that. No big deal. I can do that. We're going to work on this together. So she goes back to her office, though, starts to think about, how am I going to do this? What is that? Actually, the more I think about it, student ownership of learning is really heavy. That's really complicated. Like, what do we even mean by that? So like we do, she starts Googling, right? And she comes up with NEAT. NEAT has a definition of student ownership, right? And it means that students can articulate what they're learning and why they're learning it, strategies that support their learning and how they're going to use those. Okay, so that's one way people are thinking about it. She Googles another one and she sees somebody else thinks it's more about being motivated, engaged, self-directed, a sense of autonomy, choice, and responsibility. Okay, so that's a little different. That's more. She keeps Googling. What else does she find? Well, it means that the learner's motivated, they're engaged, they're self-directed, they can monitor their progress and be able to reflect on their learning. And then she finds this great infographic that kind of has this continuum of ownership. And she picks up on some more ideas, that it's about being able to work independently and collaboratively, that students are collecting evidence of learning, they're setting goals and working towards them, they're pursuing interests and passions. And really, she walks away from this feeling a little overwhelmed. How am I supposed to move all of my teachers to be doing all of these things? And she realizes, maybe I could use a little parallel pedagogy here, right? Maybe not just student-owned learning, but teacher-owned learning. So I'm going to let them explore what student ownership of learning is, and then we're going to come together and we're going to collaboratively write a goal, a specific area within student ownership of learning that those teachers want to focus on. And so we're going to meet some of the teachers that she's coaching and working with and around the goals. So our first teacher is Miss Butterscotch. I was really feeling really creative when I created this simulation. You'll see that all their names match the color of their shirt. Okay. So Miss Butterscotch is like, listen, I'm all in. I really want to do a good job at giving feedback. Like, I spend hours and hours giving feedback and I'm swamped. I'm at my ropes end. Like, I just can't possibly think about spending more time around giving feedback, but I know I want that feedback to be useful. Can you help me think of some student-centered feedback strategies that aren't going to take me forever and ever to provide? So that's Miss Butterscotch. She's really looking for student-centered feedback. And then we have Miss Olive. And Miss Olive is like, look, I think I'm really missing the ticket with goal setting. You know, we've all set goals with our kids in the past around how many books they want to read or what they want to increase their MAP score to, but it always feels so fake, right? Like, we set the goal and we never really come back to it. Can you help me think about how we might use goal setting more authentically to drive student learning? And then we have Mr. Salmon, who he's like, you know, as I've been learning more about student ownership of learning, I thought I was doing a really good job with reflection. Like, I asked my kids to do a lot of reflecting thinking, but what I'm realizing is I'm just telling them to think about it, right? I never capture that reflection in any kind of way or have them use it in any kind of purposeful manner. What are some ways that maybe I could think about getting students to own that reflection and use it to improve? So these are our three teachers that you as Ms. Z are going to, throughout this simulation, try to help move to more student-centered, student ownership of learning around these three things of feedback, goal setting, and reflection. So, Ms. Z, you're an experienced educator, right? You already probably have a lot of really wonderful ideas around feedback, reflection, and goal setting. So what I want you to kind of just brain dump for me here is, what are some ideas or strategies that I know a lot of you are instructional coaches or school leaders, or a lot of you are classroom teachers who are already doing some of these things. What are some things you're already doing around these that if you were Ms. Z, you might say, have you thought about, or how might you use this? So if you'll click on the Jamboard there, and then there's a bit.ly there where we can drop it in the chat for you. Oh, someone's already done that.
Thank you. And so I'm going to click on the Jamboard.
So when you go to the Jamboard, you're going to see a slide for each of our teachers, Miss Butterscotch, Miss Olive, and Mr. Salmon. And what I want you to do is either add to as many or as few of the frames as you would like. So if you've got something for Mr. Salmon, but nothing for the ladies, that's totally fine. Whatever you have that you want to bring. Add either a sticky note if you just want to describe something you're doing or a strategy you're using, or you might share with that teacher. Or if maybe you have a resource that you want to drop in, and you could click on the text box and add a link to that resource. Whatever makes sense or is helpful for you. Let's say about like 5 minutes here for you to just brain dump. What are some strategies that you as Miss Z, the instructional coach, might share with each of these teachers to help them meet their goals?
Yes.
Okay, I do see one note as we're wrapping up here with people interacting. Someone commented on noticing and wonderings. I would love to hear more about using this strategy. If person.
Oh, Rachel, you're glitching just a little bit on us.
How you're thinking about it? Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes, now you're back.
Okay, cool. I noticed that the notice and wondering sticky note, someone said they'd like to hear more about that. Could someone, whoever maybe shared the notice and wondering, talk to us a little bit about how you're using noticings and wonderings to maybe give more feedback?
I wrote noticings and wonderings. I just have thought about recently. I haven't done it for specific to student feedback. But I think when you're intentionally verbalizing your noticings about a student's work, that kind of opens the discussion about the work. And when you're putting your wonderings down, that also creates opportunity for dialogue around that.
Thank you, Jennifer. That's a great point. Just kind of, instead of feeling like we have to write everything down, maybe even just having that as a conversation could be a way to give feedback. That's really beautiful. Okay. Let me make sure there are no more question marks or things before we move away from this. So you guys will have this as an awesome resource, maybe to get some more simple shifts from. But we're going to continue on in our storyline, our immersive experience here with Ms. Z. So Ms. Z shares these strategies with our lovely friends, Miss Butterscotch, Miss Olive, and Mr. Salmon. And she again wants to practice what she's preaching. And so the teachers are so excited about what they're learning. They want to get personalized feedback on the goals they've set, right? So Miss Z starts this movement of observe me. And her teachers don't just want to get like blanket feedback that everyone gets. They also want to get, when people visit their classrooms, feedback specific to that goal that they've set. So like, for example, at the front of Mr. Salmon's classroom now hangs this sign that says, observe me. My goal is to get better at promoting student reflection to drive their learning. What did you notice about that today? And that might link to like a Google form where people, a QR code with a Google form where people could give him feedback. It might be as simple as a note they leave, whatever. But there's now this culture in Ms. Z's school, in Sharkey schools, where people give feedback to those they observe based on the goals that they've set for themselves as educators. And this starts to transform the culture. And Mr. Lemon notices. He's like, Miss Z, I was just in Mr. Salmon's class, and it was awesome. I can really tell that he's working on reflection. I saw evidence that kids were reflecting throughout the lesson and building on that reflection. And this is just awesome. I'm seeing some really great shifts towards student-owned learning. And you know what? You know, that summer conference I went to that I was all excited about, it was actually led by this school, student-owned secondary school. I want you to go visit that school, and I want you to see what's going on in those classrooms. Like, take some notes, make some observations, and what are some strategies or shifts that we can take back and add to our teachers' toolboxes. So Ms. Z is going to go visit that school now.
So Miss Z visits this student-owned secondary school, and she brings with her her little observation notebook to take all kinds of notes in all of the classrooms that she visited. And so she had Miss Butterscotch, Miss Olive, and Mr. Salmon kind of in mind as she went to the student-owned secondary school. And she was really thinking about their personalized goals as she was observing all of these fabulous classrooms. So she was taking notes on just general observations. She was taking notes on strategies she saw that they used. She even gobbled up some of the handouts that they had with some of their strategies to kind of collect a notebook full of observations. And so now Ms. Z is back at school, is back at Sharkey Academy, and is going through her notes and is trying to really think about, okay, I have all of these amazing observations, but I really need to think about which ones would be worthwhile for Miss Butterscotch to kind of explore and learn more about, which ones would be worthwhile for Miss Olive to explore, and as well as Mr. Salmon. And so we're going to ask you to become Mrs. Z, a collective Mrs. Z, and we are going to give you Mrs. Z's notebook of all of her observations. And so Adam has already, like a magician, dropped that in the chat box. And so you have Miss Notebook's observations from student-owned secondary school. And so within that notebook of observations, you have like a refresher. in regards to what were Butterscotch, Olive, and Salmon's goals. And then you have each of her observations. So she went to a total of, I believe, 8 classrooms and took notes. And you can see some live links of things she stole from those classrooms, right? All coaches and teachers and educators are just wizards at being thieves of ideas and taking little golden nuggets from other teachers' classrooms. And so that is what Miss Z did. And so we're going to put you in breakout rooms. Adam is working behind the scenes like I
am working behind the scenes. Yes.
Like the man behind the curtain in The Wizard of Oz, right?
Mhm.
And so in a minute, he's going to put you in a breakout room. And in that breakout room, what we'd like you to do is channel your inner instructional coach, your inner Miss Z, and collectively look through each of the observations, read it, and then think about, I think this observation would be really helpful for Mrs. Olive. And then you can drag Mrs. Olive right on over. Or maybe you think, I don't think that's good for Mrs. Olive and Mr. Salmon. That's fine too. And we want you to drag them over. What we care the most about in this is the conversation that you're having with your collective Miss Z selves once we put you in those breakout rooms. So let me remind you of the task. We're going to put you in a breakout room. You're going to comb through Mrs. Z's observations, thinking about Mrs. Butterscotch, Mrs. Olive, and Mr. Salmon's goals that they've set. And think about what strategies and what golden nuggets that Miss Z recorded would be most useful for her to have a coaching conversation with each of those individuals. What did I miss, Rachel or Adam?
You're doing great. I'm almost ready with the assignments here.
Awesome. Now, as a group,
sorry,
you can decide if you want to project one of the slide decks, if only one of you want to force copy. But I would think that everyone might want to force copy it so that you have it as a resource once you take your Miss Z's hat off.
All right. I think we're all back. And welcome. That was an adventure and a little excursion that you all did. I hope you enjoyed some good team and collegial educator talk as you were trying to help Miss Z. So we're making a little segue here with our shark breaking through the surface. We're coming back to the surface. We have immersed ourselves to help Miss Z with these 3 delightful teachers with 3 different needs. And now it's an opportunity to come back from that and to feed your own soul a little bit. Maybe not in the great white shark bursting through to take a hapless sea turtle to the depths or anything like that, but still feed your soul. So with that in mind, we are going to give you an opportunity to think about, of these 3 areas of student ownership that we have minimized ourselves to. As we talked about, student ownership is a pretty big thing, and there's variations on what the definitions of that might look and feel like. But on these 3 areas, at least, that we've been talking throughout the day, trying to find a choice of an area that you want to focus on. So with that in mind, there's an Explore board that is hyperlinked inside of the Google Slides. You can either click on the image itself, you can click on the words Explore board, and Rachel or Lacey, thank you. You have dropped in also the link into the chat. What we're going to do is think about what you want to learn more about. You want to learn more about feedback, or is it reflection, or is it goal setting? And for the next 10 minutes or so, you're just going to individually in this whole group, we're just silently doing this whole group style. Going to look at the articles, read articles, watch videos, listen to some different audio clips, whatever the different multimedia might be. And the key thing here is to make a goal. Think about, thanks to the accumulation of all the information and the things that you've learned up to this moment in today's virtual session, what is it that you might want to do as an action? What is a next step that you may possibly do in your role, thanks to the information that you've learned right up to the second right now? And of course, the next 10 minutes as you explore some of these articles, videos, and so on. So with that, I think I've chitty-chatted enough. It's time for you to explore. We'll start a timer for 10 minutes. Is there anything as a question or anything I can clarify for anyone before we go into our 10-minute exploration. All right, time's up. Time's up. We hope that you had a joyous exploration. We're going to pass the baton to Lacey.
So you set a goal kind of before you dug in to the Explore board. You explored a bunch of resources that were aligned to that goal. You also had all of those 8 observations that Ms. Z made that all hopefully are resources that might have gotten you a little closer to having the tools you might need to embark on that goal. And so as we're thinking about all of the tools that you've kind of gathered up throughout the session today, I want you to begin mulling in your brain. How might the student experience look and feel differently if we applied some of that learning from today, right? And so with that brings us, y'all, I can't see a clock anymore. It is 5:04. With that, it's like you buy 1 hour of professional learning, get 1 free. It's a little BOGO session, guys. So with that brings us to an optimistic closure with some parallel pedagogy of choice, as well as some parallel pedagogy of student ownership over goal setting, reflection, feedback, a little bit of it all. And so what I want you to do is pick one of the 3. My next step is, or I used to think, but now I know, or even the hashtag observe me. How might you use this strategy to start getting feedback on one of your goals? And so I'm going to give you about 60 seconds to think about which optimistic closure speaks to you the most. And then I'm going to ask a couple people to unmute and share their closure. Wow, we have some already going in the chat. If you feel uncomfortable unmuting, the chat is lovely as well. Okay, if there is anyone who feels the move to go ahead and share out loud and unmute yourself, I would love that.
I'll do it.
You were already pre-unmuted.
I was ready. I was ready.
Stephanie's
I was
ready.
about to. I'm always ready. Adam's like, she's always willing to be chatty Cathy.
Now, bring it on.
So as a coach, I feel like, and as a classroom teacher, I felt like goal setting was something I was uber passionate about, but it was a challenge to maintain and keep up with, like to real fidelity, where I felt like I was really moving mountains with it. So my next step is to reflect on the impact goal setting has in my life and start to help my teachers with that. So if I can share tips on goal setting or even encourage them to set digital learning goals that I can support them with, it'll kind of be like a win-win, like a little bit of coaching and a little bit of support, but also something they could then show in their classroom. So that is my next step.
You are awesome. Thank you. We have a couple things in the chat. Oh, I like this. The quote I'm still chewing on. Reflection is the glue that holds inquiry together. That's a great quote to pull out. And you have lots of people that are reacting with a heart. Love it. Anybody else want to unmute?
I can share a few more from the chat as well as we finish up
I'll
today.
unmute, Lacey.
Go for it.
Thank
I
you.
put it in the chat too. So I watched the brain science video on reflection, and my aha at the end of, reflection's great, but Now I know that if the writing skill of your learner's context is a struggle for them and you ask them to write and be reflective, it's not reflective.
Mind blown. Look at you. Mind blown.
That's good. You're right. The rate to lock that into memory, but that's where they struggle. Then the loop doesn't get closed, right?
So we have in the chat, love the video on My Favorite No, sharing that one tonight. Melissa from Anchorage, my next step is to look into ways I can build purposeful goal setting, student driven, into a first grade classroom. Not sure how yet, but I want to do some research for ideas.
And Melissa, for that, I know back to our three friends, Salmon and Butterscotch and Olive, when someone was throwing their own ideas, one that I thought that kind of stuck with me is the idea of, maybe you just start with like a personally minded goal, even before you worry about the academic. So it feels kind of safe and more, not so, where academic can get a little scary, especially for younger kids, as far as what does that mean besides just I want to do a map score 12 points higher. It's a personal thing, a durable skill of, especially at that age group and at age level. So whoever can speak for that, whoever added that post-it note with that, I thought that was a great idea.
And Melissa, I have a couple little bloopity resources that I'll shoot your way too on that.
And let's see, Sharon, were you looking for the Explore board again? We can throw that back in there real quick.
That and the one with the teacher observation little thing.
The slide deck. Yeah.
Okay, give me a second and I'll add that in here. As
We can share the whole slide deck again, and it's got all those things linked in there.
That's smart. That's listen, Rachel.
I mean, I try to be logical sometimes,
Stacy loved the video on creating a culture of revision, changing the idea of what it means to be done with something. Amen. Yes. And I think we have tried to have some strategies even about what that means instructionally as we've gone throughout kind of our 4 sessions together.
And y'all are talking about goal setting for younger kids. I know that like in Bullitt County, we do CASE, but in Hardin County or when I was in West Point, we did MAPS, and I had kindergartners and first graders. And I even talked to them about, they would give us a goal and the kids were like, okay, whatever. They had no clue. So if you pull them up, and I pulled them up and explained to them what it was, what their goal was, and what that meant that they had to do to bring it up, they were more invested in it, even as kindergartners and first graders, because it meant something to them other than just saying, well, you had a 24, now you need a 28. So that helps even with little ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it. Thanks.
Aubrey, you looked like you were unmuting, then muting, then unmuting.
I was. So going back to kind of what Adam was saying about student-driven goals, I read an article that had stated when you allow students that opportunity, it serves a critical role in their well-being. It helps provide them a sense of meaning and belonging, which can lead to them being fully engaged in their learning. It's something attainable that they can get, and the teachers working with them to set those goals and how they're going to meet them and what it looks like when they meet them. And I thought that was really interesting.
Thank you for unmuting and sharing.
Yes, thank you.
Anyone else for the good of the
little
group?
SEL on that, sorry.
Okay. That takes us to Adam. Taking us
Okay.
home.
All right, you're still driving, right? The slides, I mean. All right, perfect. All right. Well, as always, at the end of all of our sessions through this Navigating the Waters of Deeper Learning series, just know that we have some documentation where we're capturing the new shifts that were experienced in this particular presentation, and it's adding to a living document, an ever-growing set. Since we have a minute or two, can you just click on the Google Sheet real quick? Delightful. You'll see all the different simple shifts. We've added a couple for this particular session. You'll see at the end of the row there, that's a link that goes straight to the specific slide of a slide deck that has further resources and information and examples for you to plunge. So we just want to make sure that you had an opportunity to see that. Back to our slide deck. I'm so sorry. Next. So just know that we are down to our last session of the series that is going to happen in person, and that's on April 12th, and it's blocked out as a full day. So we certainly hope that some or all of you, of course, all of you need to come. You need to be invited. You need to bring a friend. So we would love to see you in person at the Shelby Conference Center on April 12th. Really quick, just as a promise, there is a opportunity called Teach Meet that's being hosted in Bullitt County. I'm just going to throw that in the chat. I just want to make sure people have an opportunity to see it and see if they want to sign up for submitting something or possibly attending. Danita, did you want to say anything really quick about that?
It's going to be awesome.
Of course.
Everybody needs to come.
That sounds fair. And it's July 19th, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay,
Thank you.
perfect. Last but not least, we want to make sure that friends sign in so that you can get all the credits and the things. And we want to make sure to throw that sign in link perhaps in the chat as well. I know it's in the speaker notes, or you can use the QR code and just zappity zap it right off the screen if you like. And while that is happening, we just want to thank you so very much for being here today and for staying with us for the time. And for these last 3 virtual sessions, it's been real fun for us to have that opportunity to do this learning and opportunity of experiences with you. So thank you so much. I am putting the sign in link in the chat. There you go. And with that, no further ado. Goodbye, y'all. Thanks so much for coming.